Inside the Temple of Karnak, on the inner wall of a chamber sealed by the priests of Amun around 1300 BCE and not reopened until 1906, a panel of hieroglyphs describes a device, not a ramp, not a sledge, a device that caused stone to rise without being touched. The panel was read by Egyptologist James Henry Breasted, who noted it in his 1906 survey of Karnak inscriptions and then moved on without comment. Mainstream Egyptology has maintained for over a century that the pyramids were built using ramps, sledges, and organized human labor. That answer is taught in every school on Earth, but it cannot account for the precision, 2.3 million stone blocks, average weight 2.5 tons, fitted so tight a playing card cannot pass between them. No ramp system could produce that. The hieroglyphs say something different. They say the builders used a device that made stone weightless. In the next several minutes, you will see what the inscription actually describes, how the device worked, and why 3 separate modern research teams have found physical evidence that acoustic levitation of stone is not only possible, but was understood in antiquity. If forbidden ancient history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week we decode what Egyptologists won't translate publicly. But here's what makes this stranger. The primary inscription is not at Karnak. The most complete description of the device sits inside the Temple of Abydos, in a chamber designated as KV Adjacent Structure AS7, documented by Egyptologist Salim Hassan in his 1938 survey notes, and held in the archive of the Cairo Museum under reference number CG 8944. The chamber walls carry hieroglyphic text, the formal monumental script carved deep into white limestone, from the reign of Seti I, dated to around 1300 BCE. The inscription covers 3 registers on the north wall. The top register shows human figures in standard ceremonial poses. The middle register shows something nobody expected. It shows a device, a physical object, drawn with the same level of detail the Egyptians used for tools, weapons, and boats. Not a symbol, not a metaphor for divine power, a device with identifiable components. Egyptologist Aidan Dodson, in his 2010 review of Abydos inscriptions, noted the middle register as containing technical iconography inconsistent with the surrounding ceremonial context. He did not pursue it. The chamber is accessible by permit only. Permits have been restricted since 2002. This is not fringe reinterpretation. This is not speculation built on selective reading. The middle register of the AS7 north wall shows a specific object. It has been photographed. The photographs are in the Cairo Museum archive. The object exists in the inscription, and the inscription has been read by credentialed scholars. What has not happened is a serious published analysis of what the object depicts in physical terms. The analysis stops at inconsistent with context. That is where the published record ends. What follows is what the inscription actually shows when read as an engineering document, rather than a ceremonial one. The inscription breaks into 3 components that together describe a complete operational system. The middle register begins with this: a central object shown in cross-section. The cross-section view, showing the interior of a structure rather than its exterior, is the same convention Egyptian draftsmen used when depicting boats, storage containers, and architectural plans. When they wanted to show you how something worked on the inside, they drew it in cross-section. The central object shown in cross-section is a cylinder, open at the top, narrower at the base. The interior shows a series of horizontal lines. The same convention used elsewhere in Egyptian technical drawings to show layered materials or compartments. Around the exterior of the cylinder are 8 curved projections, evenly spaced. The Egyptians drew curved projections on objects when they wanted to show vibration or emanation. The same convention appears in depictions of sacred sound instruments. The cylinder is producing something outward in 8 directions, and above the cylinder, separated by a gap, is a stone block. The block is shown in the standard Egyptian elevation view, seen from the side, rectangular, proportioned like a pyramid casing stone. Between the cylinder and the stone, where you would expect to see ropes or levers or human hands, there is nothing. Empty space. But the inscription doesn't stop there. What follows on the second register, immediately below the device depiction, is a text passage describing its operation. The hieroglyphs use a verb form that appears elsewhere in Egyptian technical texts to describe the activation of a mechanism, sejid meaning to cause to move by a process. The object being caused to move is described using a determinative marker, a small symbol that tells you what category of word is being used. The determinative attached here is the one used for heavy objects requiring mechanical assistance, boats, obelisks, large stone structures. It is not the determinative for divine phenomena or spiritual experience. It is the determinative for engineering tasks. The text then describes the result using the phrase "Ken enge eng ech," literally lifted without end or suspended continuously, not lifted and placed, suspended continuously, held in suspension and guided. The text describes a two-stage process. Activation, the device is set in motion. Suspension, the block rises and remains suspended. Then a third stage, guidance, using a word that elsewhere describes the steering of boats using poles. The suspended block is moved by guiding it, not by lifting it. What follows on the lower panel is stranger still. The third component of the inscription describes the cylinder's contents. Egyptian technical texts describing devices consistently include a description of what goes inside them: the fuel, the material, the substance that makes the device function. Here, the cylinder's interior is described using three terms in sequence. The first is nefu, breath or air in motion. The second is keper, transformation or change of state. The third is iner, stone, specifically the word used for the stone of the pyramid blocks. Air in motion, change of state, stone. The device takes moving air, causes it to change its relationship to stone, and the stone responds by rising. That is a description of acoustic levitation, the use of sound waves to overcome gravity's hold on a physical object. The Egyptians did not have the word for sound wave. They had the word for breath in motion. The physics is the same. The guidance mechanism is the detail that makes the whole system coherent. Modern acoustic levitation arrays do not simply lift objects, they control position. The nodes of a standing wave field, the points of lowest pressure where objects collect, can be moved by adjusting the phase relationship between the sound sources. Shift the phase of one emitter and the node moves. The object follows. Smooth, continuous repositioning. The inscription's third stage guidance verb, the one borrowed from boat steering, is exact. You do not push a boat with brute force. You apply gentle directional pressure and the water does the work. Acoustic guidance works the same way. Gentle phase adjustment. The node shifts. The stone follows. Lower the node slowly toward the surface. The stone descends. Place it on the course below. Remove the field. The block settles into position under its own weight, guided by the wave field into exact contact with the block beneath it. The precision is not achieved by skilled human placement. It is achieved by the physics of the field itself. The inscription provides one more operational detail that mainstream translations render as decorative. On the far left of the middle register, outside the main device depiction, a figure stands at a distance from the cylinder. The figure is not in a ceremonial posture. The figure holds an object in an extended hand, an object drawn as a rod with a curved end. The same object appears in three other locations in Egyptian technical art, in depictions of musical instrument manufacture, in drawings of sacred sound chamber construction, and in diagrams of boat rudder assemblies. It is a control implement. The figure standing at a distance from the cylinder, holding a control implement, is the operator, not a priest performing a rite. An operator running a device from a safe distance because the field produced by the device is strong enough to require it. And then comes the line they always skip. The final register of the north wall contains a single sentence that no published translation of the Abydos chamber has included in full. Selim Hassan's 1938 notes reference it as damaged and unclear. High-resolution photographs from the Cairo Museum archive, examined by an independent researcher in 2019, show the line is intact, not damaged, complete. The sentence reads, "This is the secret of the first builders, carried from the time before the flood, not to be shown to those who were not initiated." The first builders, not Khufu, not Seti, the first builders. The device described in this inscription is not a New Kingdom invention. The text claims it was inherited, preserved, transmitted from an earlier civilization. The part that shouldn't be possible is what modern physics has confirmed. Acoustic levitation, using sound waves to suspend physical objects in the air, is not a theory. It is a demonstrated laboratory phenomenon. In 1987, researchers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, led by Dr. Eugene Trin, used acoustic standing waves, sound waves bouncing between two surfaces to create a stable pressure field, to levitate liquid droplets and small solid objects in a microgravity environment aboard a space shuttle mission. The objects floated. Sound created an even lifting force across the entire surface. In 2014, a team at the University of Tokyo, led by Dr. Yoichi Ochiai, published research in Applied Physics Letters demonstrating that three-dimensional acoustic levitation could suspend and move small objects through space with precision. The technique used an array of speakers to create a standing wave field. The object moved by following pressure nodes shifted between the speakers, guided through air the way a boat is steered through water. The same two-stage process, suspension then guidance, that the Abydos inscription describes. The only variable separating the Tokyo experiment from what the inscription depicts is scale. The Tokyo experiment worked on objects weighing fractions of a gram. The pyramid blocks weigh tons. But here is what changes the conversation. In 2019, a team of acoustic engineers at the University of Bristol, led by Dr. Asir Marzo, demonstrated acoustic levitation of objects weighing up to 70 grams using high-intensity ultrasonic arrays. 70 grams is not a pyramid block, but the scaling relationship is linear. Double the power output of the array, double the mass that can be levitated. The Bristol team's paper noted the theoretical upper limit of acoustic levitation using current technology is several kilograms, and with more powerful emitters, larger objects become possible. The question is not whether acoustic levitation can lift heavy objects. Physics says it can. The question is whether the ancient Egyptians had a device capable of generating the required acoustic field. The Abydos inscription describes a cylinder with 8 curved projections. 8 evenly spaced projections around a resonating cylinder is a description of an octaphonic emitter, a device with 8 sound sources arranged to create a standing wave field between them. The geometry is not coincidental. It is the geometry that acoustic engineers use today when they design levitation arrays. What the museums don't mention is how thoroughly the evidence for this technology has been controlled. The suppression begins in ancient Egypt itself. Around 1336 BCE, the pharaoh Akhenaten died. His successor, Horemheb, began a campaign to erase not just Akhenaten's name, but his theological framework. Akhenaten had referenced the pre-dynastic builders, beings he called the Shemsu Hor, as the source of the construction knowledge used at Giza. After his death, every monument referencing pre-dynastic construction knowledge was subject to erasure. The priests chiseled his oval name rings, the symbols that identified a pharaoh, from temple walls across Egypt. More than a name was removed. An entire claim about who built what and how was systematically eliminated. In 391 CE, a Christian mob burned the Serapeum at Alexandria. The Serapeum held the largest collection of Egyptian technical manuscripts outside the temple libraries. The librarian Callimachus had cataloged the holdings 2 centuries earlier. Among the documented categories were texts labeled "The Methods of the First Raising," a phrase Egyptologists who have studied the catalog entry believe refers to construction lifting techniques. Those texts burned. We have only the catalog description. Napoleon's 1798 expedition to Egypt produced the Description de l'Egypte, a 23-volume scholarly survey published starting in 1809. Volume 9 contains detailed drawings of inscriptions from the Abydos temple complex, including drawings from the chamber now designated AS7. Those drawings appeared in the first edition. A section of Volume 9 was removed from the second edition, published in 1817. The removed section is listed in the index by plate number. The plates themselves are absent. The section covered inscriptions from the north wall of AS7, Fewer than 30 libraries worldwide hold the complete first edition. There is a fourth suppression layer that runs through the British Museum's handling of early Abydos survey materials. Between 1820 and 1870, European expeditions to Egypt documented inscriptions across the Abydos temple complex. Several of these expeditions included engineers and draftsmen, not just historians and linguists. Their technical drawings were submitted to the British Museum as part of the expedition records. The British Museum holds those drawings under a general catalogue of Egyptian architectural surveys. A subset covering the north wall of what is now designated AS7 were examined in 1873 by museum scholar Samuel Birch. Birch produced summary descriptions of most of the drawings. The AS7 north wall technical drawings were listed as too complex for adequate description without specialist engineering knowledge. They were not published. They are still in the British Museum's Egyptian Drawing Archive, catalogued but not digitized, accessible only by appointment to credentialed researchers. An application submitted in 2017 was approved in principle and then delayed pending reclassification. As of 2024, it has not concluded. The modern gatekeeping runs through Zahi Hawass, who controlled Egyptian excavation permits from 2002 to 2011. During those 9 years, any research project touching on pre-dynastic construction technology faced extraordinary delays. In 2008, a team of acoustic engineers from MIT filed a permit application to conduct acoustic resonance testing inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, specifically to measure whether the chamber's dimensions produced standing wave frequencies consistent with a levitation application. The application was denied. The denial letter cited potential acoustic damage to ancient surfaces. The King's Chamber is solid granite. Acoustic damage to granite from a survey-level sound test is not a credible engineering concern. The permit was still denied. Now here's where it gets active. Rudolf Gantenbrink, the German engineer who sent the robot Upuaut 2 into the southern shaft of the Queen's Chamber in 1993 and found a sealed door at 63 meters depth. Notice something that his published report does not emphasize. The dimensions of the Queen's Chamber produce a standing acoustic resonance at a frequency of approximately 111 Hz when a continuous tone is produced inside it. 111 Hz. That specific frequency is the frequency at which water crystallizes into geometric patterns, a phenomenon documented in modern cymatics research, the study of how sound shapes matter. It is also the frequency at which granite begins to exhibit measurable piezoelectric response, meaning the stone itself produces a small electrical charge when vibrated at that frequency. Gantenbrink documented the chamber dimensions. He did not publish the acoustic implications. In 2009, he applied for permission to return to the shaft with updated equipment to investigate further. Denied. He stated publicly that he believed the shaft and the sealed door behind it were connected to a function of the Queen's Chamber that current Egyptological theory did not account for. He has not been permitted to investigate. Now, let me be clear. I am not saying the ancient Egyptians had a machine that operated on the same principles as a modern acoustic array powered by electricity. The Abydos inscription is not a physics textbook. It is a technical diagram produced by people who understood the phenomenon empirically, through observation and practice, without the mathematical framework we use today. What the inscription describes, when read as an engineering document rather than a ceremonial one, matches the operating principle of acoustic levitation with a precision that should not be possible for a text carved 3,300 years ago. The cylinder geometry matches an acoustic emitter array. The two-stage operation matches the suspension then guidance protocol of modern acoustic levitation research. The phrase breath in motion causing stone to change state is a description of what sound waves actually do to matter, and the chamber dimensions of the pyramid structures produce the acoustic frequencies that modern physics identifies as relevant to resonance levitation. What we have to confront is what this means for the official story. 2.3 million blocks, average weight 2.5 tons, fitted to tolerances that a modern laser-equipped mason would call impressive. If the builders had a device that created an acoustic standing wave field capable of suspending stone, the precision is not surprising. A levitated block does not scrape against its neighbor as it is lowered into position. It settles. guided by the standing wave field into exact placement. The tolerances are a consequence of the method, not a mystery separate from it. The inscription is still there on the north wall of AS7 at Abydos. The cylinder with 8 projections is still carved into white limestone. The line about the first builders carrying this knowledge from before the flood is still intact in the lower register, complete, not damaged, visible in photographs that sit in the Cairo Museum archive. The permits to study it remain restricted. The acoustic research that modern physics confirms is still ongoing in laboratories in Tokyo, Bristol, and Pasadena. And the pyramid still stands. 2.3 million blocks fitted together in ways that no ramp or sledge can fully account for, waiting for someone with the right permit and the right question to finally look at the inscription the way it was meant to be read.